Chapter 66. Are you the queen bee? Arsha smiled and nodded. Yes, I am the queen bee you were looking for. What's your relationship with Querehsha? She smiled at Suho's direct question. You know the monarch well. Let's say it's just like how you are the Fang monarch's descendant. Oh my, what's with that look on your face? You smell like an animal all over your body. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? I'm not stupid. For a moment, Suho was at a loss for words at Arsha's meaningful gaze. Just in time, a divine wind swept through Suho's pure white hair. The king of beasts, Fang monarch, grabs his belly and thumps on the floor, laughing at the queen bee. The real descendant of the Fang monarch has now possessed Suho's body. By the way, it's a bit disappointing that the descendant of the Fang monarch took away the worker bees I worked so hard for. Could it be the power of the Fang monarch, the famous contempt for the weak? Overpowering beasts weaker than himself, right? No, it was all wrong. None of them fit. Why did she keep talking nonsense with that expression? The king of beasts, Fang monarch, grabs his stomach and thumps again. Stop laughing. It was just a lack of information. She's probably not that stupid. Suho didn't know why, but he felt embarrassed for her. So he made an excuse for Arsha instead. It is natural to misunderstand. Just in time, Beru delivered a message directly into Suho's head so Arsha couldn't hear it. As I said before, in order for a descendant of a monarch to exist, the monarch must die first to create that vacancy. But the victor of the war, the Shadow Monarch, is still alive. That means no one will think of me as a descendant of the Shadow Monarch. It's actually like that. Although Beru had always called Suho young master, strictly speaking he is only the son of the Shadow Monarch and not the official successor. In the first place, a descendant of the Shadow Monarch could not exist in the world, because Sung Jinwoo, the ruler of death, will never die. The clear evidence of that was Suho's status window. Status window. Name, Sung Suho. Level, 28. Occupation, none. If Suho was the official successor, there was no way that the occupation column would remain blank. There was more evidence. Those shadow soldiers standing firmly behind Suho. Since Suho was not a monarch, he could not command an entire army, so at best, he could only release shadow soldiers for his daily tasks. After a day, they would go back to nothing. There was no need to explain those to Arsha. It was normal to see her misleading herself. Let's see how it turns out. Suho asked Arsha a question instead of an answer. So you're saying you're a descendant of Querehsha? Well, in fact, all of us bugs are her descendants. Querehsha is one in a colony. She is the mother of all bugs. If you turn your back, you will die. Actually, the words are being twisted, young master. Suho ignored Beru's whispers for a moment. Oh my goodness, so scary. As Suho's sharp gaze, Arsha raised both hands in an exaggerated gesture of surrender. Then an amazing sight unfolded. Arsha's hands were split into numerous bees and scattered. How dare you! Beru's hand, furious at the moment, quickly wafted through the air. That caused several small bees to land on the table. The remaining bees coalesced back to Arsha and turned into hands again. Beru's eyes squinted. It's something that weak bugs often do to protect themselves. Is that the basis of the struggle to survive? Where's the main body? Oh, you're not surprised at all. Even in that situation, Suho remained calm. He too. I couldn't see the name tag from the beginning. Instead of the name Arsha, Suho saw something else. There were name tags of the numerous contaminated wasps that have gathered around Arsha's body. Yes, that's right. I left for here right away. One of the worker bees I worked hard to raise rebelled against me and decided to move the hive. Worker? Could it be? Correct. Vice President Lee Minseong, who is a hot issue these days. Arsha answers with a small sigh. Her gaze suddenly turned to the shadow lancers standing behind Suho. You know what? Those lancers were once human too. I fed royal jelly to the men who came to Earth and approached me with a dark heart, and they evolved into worker bees. Royal jelly? What is that? It is the power of the queen bee. The queen bee Arsha had poison that she had in her body since she was born. A special poison named royal jelly. The poison is sweet like honey, but the moment it enters the body of the host, it transforms the host into a loyal worker bee that only follows the queen bee. However, the conditions for making them worker bees are quite difficult. Condition? Yes. Those who cannot withstand the toxicity of royal jelly die immediately, and those who have some degree of immunity rot alive. Rot. Is it like the arm of Gudongjae? I did a good job cutting it right away. Accordingly, catching just anyone and feeding them royal jelly did not mean that all of them would evolve into worker bees. At first, Arsha also had to go through a lot of trial and error, So I set up a bar and kept feeding royal jelly to random people. Then I just knew. Those who meekly accepted the power of the queen bee and willingly gave up on humans to become worker bees. They had one thing in common. Craving. Arsha's eyes glimmered. People who have stronger desires than others give up being human very easily. Every human being has desires. However, the amount of the desire was different for each person, and the types were diverse. Among them, especially those who have strong desire, i.e. hunter. So, among the hunters, I found those who were not satisfied with their strength and wanted to become stronger somehow. Oh, they were easy to find. When I threw the bait, they came on their own. Suho immediately realized what that method was. Stardust? That's right. If you fed royal jelly to hunters who used stardust, the healthiest worker bees were born. Coincidentally, Vice President Lee Minseong also distributed stardust. Looking back, Lee Minseong was a good worker for Arsha in many ways. Even when he was human, he was very helpful. But in fact, the thing she looked forward to the most was when he became a real worker bee. He was a person who aspired to become an S-class, even though he had the strength of an A-class. So I really put a lot of effort into raising him. If he was unqualified, he would die. So he spent time and adapted to royal jelly little by little, like a vaccine. A small amount of poison was fed daily, but I guess he ate too much. The vaccine was too strong. He ended up running away from me. He ran away? Beru was the first to react to those words. A worker bee running away from the queen bee? For an ant serving a great king, it was an act that could not be dared to imagine. Yes, he became a worker bee, but a kind worker bee that was born and refused to become a worker of the queen. Arsha let out a deep sigh with a really embarrassed expression. Maybe he even wants to imitate me, so he started gathering his own legion. On the subject of failure. Legion. Suho's expression stiffened at that familiar yet ominous word. Outside Times Square, unusual signs were happening all over the city. Did he drink too much? Citizens whispered, as they watched a passerby clutching his throbbing head while staggering. Why is that person like that? I don't know. He's a hunter, right? He's wearing armor. Hey, let's avoid getting involved in trouble for nothing. Among the hunters, there were often such people. Those who suddenly awakened as high-ranking hunters, became wealthy overnight, and lost control. If civilian people were involved with them, their lives could be really in danger with no exaggeration. People whispered, and secretly began to distance themselves from the hunter. Right then, the hunter, who was walking in a strange posture, turned his head toward the people. A rotting face like a corpse was exposed. The complexion of the people who saw it quickly became pale. Eventually, the hunter's mouth opened wide and he attacked the citizens. Monster! Screams spread like flames at the sudden appearance of a humanoid monster. But screams were coming from other alleys as well. It wasn't just one guy. The association has an emergency. Dozens of villains are attacking citizens. Let the attackers closest to the scene mobilize immediately. Team leader Han Jae-hyuk, who was tracking Lee Minseong, was given an order from the upper level. These crazy bastards, why are there so many villains these days? Han Jae-hyuk immediately dragged his men and moved directly to the place where the villains appeared. The scene was a mess. Bodies dying in a gruesome manner. Villains stepping past them. No, they're not villains. Arriving at the scene, Han Jae-hyuk, who finally confirmed their appearance, got goosebumps. Villain was a term referring to an awakened person who became a criminal, but the moment he saw them, his instincts were giving him a strong warning. That is not human. Like Mistburn, those who were once human but have turned into demonic beasts. The association recently gave them a new name. Mutant. Just in time, the mutants, rotting like corpses, discovered the association's hunters and started attacking them. The battle started, and Han Jae-hyuk hurriedly picked up his walkie-talkie and shouted while deploying his defense skills. Reporting. They're not villains. They're mutants. Conversation seems completely impossible, and we don't have enough power. At the same time, an association hunter who was evacuating citizens was attacked and fell down. Then, the mutants rushed towards him as he fell. Why are you so strong? Han Jae-hyuk, who was radioing, witnessed the scene a step later and jumped in hastily. Right then, open fire! A rain of arrows suddenly fell down from the sky. It was truly spectacular. The pouring arrows evaded people and hit only the bodies of the mutants. Surprised, Han Jae-hyuk looked back. There, the hunters of the famous Reaper Guild aimed their bows at once. Lee Minseong isn't there. What kind of situation is this again? Lim Taegyu was standing in the middle of them with a stern expression. He checked the appearances of the mutants one by one and then screamed. Why did our guild members end up like this here? The mutants that appeared on the streets were all members of the Reaper Guild who had been kidnapped by Lee Minseong. Chapter 67. Lee Minseong, that bastard. Somehow, only the hunters of the Reaper Guild were kidnapped without getting killed. Lim Taegyu was furious. When he remembered Lee Minseong's usual behavior, he realized what he wanted to do. He had been frantic to upgrade his position even within the Reaper Guild all along, to become higher than Taegyu, his friend and the guild leader. I don't know what kind of skills you bought with money, but did you have to take our members to be your subordinates and even made them look like this? What the hell what are you doing this for? Looking at the mutants who had already lost their human appearance, Lim Taegyu gnashed his teeth and pulled the bowstring. Magical arrows were created along with blue air currents in the S-class weapon, Reaper's Bow. 1, 2, 3, 4. A total of 5 magic arrows flew in different directions and pierced the scattered bodies of the mutants. Screams came out from the mouths of the mutants who were once in the same guild as him, but now became monsters. For some reason, Lim Taegyu seemed to hear that scream like a painful cry. However, the mutants moved even with Lim Taegyu's arrows stuck in their bodies. He was taken aback by their tenacity. Perhaps because they were senior hunters before they were mutants, their physical abilities were considerable. Besides, since they were still wearing the armor when they were kidnapped, it seemed unreasonable to be able to kill them with 1 or 2 arrows. Lim Taegyu gritted his teeth and looked back at the fine guild members he had brought. They were hesitant to attack as their colleagues, who they had been laughing and chatting with until a few days ago, had turned into monsters. Lim Taegyu shouted as he pulled the bowstring again. Don't hesitate. Those mutants are not human. They're not the guys we used to know anymore. Yes, sir. It's useless to empathize because they have already become zombies. Target their legs to slow down their movements, then cut off their limbs. The guild members, who were brought under the extremely cruel yet resolute order, gritted their teeth and took up their weapons. Even in such a situation, being decisive was the true character of Lim Taegyu, an S-class hunter who had led the Reaper Guild up until now. The guild members who came to their senses at his lightning-like shouts began to attack the mutants urgently. Is this what the Reaper Guild is like? Association hunters who were rescuing citizens admired their performance. The vice president's issue was still the same, having many controversies. But the Reaper Guild was still the Reaper Guild, one of the top guilds in Korea. Its potential was most evident in emergency situations like that. But the problem is that the mutants were also members of the Reaper Guild. Even though they lost their minds and became monsters, the experiences engraved in their bodies did not easily disappear. Mutants spread, hide! The mutants escaped the Reaper Guild's attack and hid inside the building. Soon after, the citizens inside the building became their victims. But please save! The guild members who saw the unexpected counterattack of the mutants were perplexed. Stop! Don't let them enter the building. Eventually, they chased the screams coming from all over the building. That was a trap. What? There's a swarm of bees in the building. Contaminated wasps waiting for the hunters to enter the building attacked. Wasps? These are not ordinary bees. They are insect-type monsters. Poison. Never get stung by the bees. Things got messy. They chased the mutants and entered the building. Then there was a swarm of bees. No matter how well trained the Reaper Guild was, it was inevitable to panic in such a situation, Lim Taegyu realized. Unlike the appearance of mutants, they were moving strategically. This meant that someone was manipulating them from behind. It was obvious who it was. Lee Minseong. A scream filled with magic erupted from Lim Taegyu's mouth. Where are you? Where are you hiding? The echoing voice of the S-class hunter shook the air like a shockwave and shattered the windows of the buildings. Your ears! Cover your ears! Association hunters shouted urgently while rescuing citizens. At the center of the chaos, Lim Taegyu held the Reaper's bow and aimed towards the sky. Multi-shots. Numerous arrows with magical power shot toward the sky and fell to the ground in a parabolic arc like a fountain. Some of the arrows hit the top of the heads of mutants who were roaming the streets. Some of the arrows penetrated the broken windows and into the torso of the mutants who were attacking people inside. Not a single arrow among them accidentally harmed the citizens. Team leader Han Jae-hyuk of the association. Hunter could not keep his mouth shut at that amazing skill. If they had something like this, they should have used it sooner. Even with that said, there was a huge gap in such skills. It was understandable that Lim Taegyu cherished that. The effect was certain. The mutants whose bodies were pierced by the arrows could not even get up and struggled on the floor. The arrow threaded their entire torso to the floor and fixed them as they were. The Reaper Guild members rushed at them and cut off their limbs. Their colleagues who they were laughing and chatting with just a few days ago. I'm sorry, J-Sub. Killed. The association hunters breathed a sigh of relief. With the help of the Reaper Guild, the number of mutants was noticeably decreasing. Good. At this rate, sooner or later this place will be tidied up. But that was then. Something odd happened. A sound was suddenly heard from somewhere. There was Lim Taegyu. looking down at the sword that pierced his stomach with a puzzled expression. His mind was blurry. It's poison. However, what surprised Lim Taegyu more than that was the fact that he did not see it coming. Who the hell could deceive the senses of an S-class hunter and attack from behind? He immediately looked back and confirmed the identity of the person who stabbed him, and his mind went blank. Well, why did you? The person didn't simply attack from behind. Ever since, he had been standing right behind him. Always had. Sorry, boss. Secretary O, who had stabbed Lim Taegyu, smirked. It's still too early. Vice President Lee Minseong needs to be a little more aggressive. Suho asked Arsha. You don't seem to care much about that, do you? Even though Lee Minseong is imitating the queen bee and creating her own army, Arsha, the real queen bee, seemed unconcerned. I'm pretty perplexed. Was he really a hard-raised worker bee? Then, you should have sent the lancers to catch him as soon as he ran away. I was going to do that at first too. But no matter how much I send ordinary lancers, I can't do anything about him. The contaminated lancers were C-class or lower-level hunters. No matter how many of such worker bees went after him, it was impossible to catch Lee Minseong, who was an A-class hunter. Just like how Suho defeated them all and arrived at that place. Arsha frowned, crossed her legs, corrected her posture, and sat down. I also have a lot of headaches too. Originally, my plan was to quietly hide here and follow in the footsteps of Querehsha. So I lived a really quiet life. The number of lancers you had was too many for that. This is rather small. I gathered them up, little by little, so that I wouldn't get caught in the association. If I had planned to collect them quickly, wouldn't I have collected 100 times more? I guess so. Suho agreed with that. As he heard, the way to make a lancer was simple. Feed them royal jelly. Nothing more, nothing less. If one was lucky enough to take in royal jelly well, they would become a lancer, otherwise they would die. Actually, it takes a lot of work. First, I have to tame each bee that lives on Earth into my own power, and I have to put my royal jelly in the bee sting. Those words coming from a queen bee, don't you sound like a beekeeper instead? Beru unintentionally mocked Arsha with an innocent look. Arsha looked a little hurt. I couldn't help it. Crossing the dimensional rift, I lost all of my worker bees, so I had to find new ones, one by one. You must have had a hard time. I'm sorry. I killed all the lancers you worked so hard for today. Lee Minseong also ran away, apologizing with an expression that doesn't feel sorry at all. Arsha responded in a bewildered manner at Suho's soulless apology. Then she smiled and crossed her arms proudly. Well, it's okay. Although Lee Minseong, whom I worked hard to raise, became a disloyal worker and ran away, his instincts are still working faithfully for me. For you? Yes. He must still be working hard to make me the queen of insects. Of course, you may not be aware of it yourself. At Arsha's words, Suho felt a strange sense of déjà vu. According to the Baek Guild's briefing, all Minseong did in the past few days was raiding and kidnapping hunters. Why did he kidnap the hunters to create his own legion and kill? What if killing people is the goal itself? A flash of light struck Suho's head momentarily. He finally realized, to succeed the dead monarch, to become the new monarch. He has seen that process before. The king of beasts, Fang Monarch, chuckles and looks at his pontifex. Just in time. As if in response to that realization, Rakan sent a message, Suho said while glaring at Arsha, who was sitting peacefully despite losing all his ground. You need a sacrifice. As many offerings as possible to hold a sacrifice for the dead Querehsha. Suho was convinced when he saw Arsha's reaction, as her expressions gradually hardened at his words. Lee Minseong is performing the sword dance outside for you right now. Seeing how only hunters are killed, I guess Querehsha needs a sacrifice imbued with magic. Well, it would be strange if you didn't know that. It may be different, but you must have done something similar to become a descendant of the Fang Monarch. He was a pontifex, not a descendant, but it was good. Suho shrugged and asked, but will you be okay? The Reaper Guild is firmly targeting Lee Minseong. If he stood still, I'm afraid he would be tied up in one barrel. Besides, to catch the A-class Lee Minseong, of course, the S-class guild leader would have to step up. Suho then kept his mouth shut. Arsha, who had Lee Minseong by his side for a long time, could never have known that fact. The fact that if an S-class hunter steps forward, Lee Minseong will be caught in an instant. She became uneasy. You yourself planted the traitor Lee Minseong next to the guild leader. Scared of Suho's words, a genuine expression appeared for the first time on Arsha's relaxed face. Chapter 68. Is that so? Can't be careless then? Arsha bursts into laughter. Don't tell me you can also see right through here. However, there was not even a hint of laughter in the eyes that glared at Suho. The swarm of bees that formed Arsha's face kept scattering and coming together, showing how perplexed she was right now. Suho smirked. I must be right. That's enough for the conversation. Arsha suddenly stood up, so Suho asked teasingly. Suddenly? Are you busy? Of course. I have to go collect the sacrifices that Lee Minseong killed and look for a new beehive to move into. Where are you moving? Did you find any places? Wherever that place is, Mr. Suho won't be able to find it. That's sad. I was thinking of going to your housewarming party. That would be impossible. None of them was backing out of the verbal battle. Looking back at Suho, Arsha said with a most gorgeous smile, while we were chatting, this basement was filled with my poison. Poison? Yes, it's a colorless, odorless poison made with great care, so even a descendant of the Fang monarch would not have noticed. The reason why Arsha talked with Suho in that place was to buy time for her poison to penetrate completely deep into his body. Arsha's smile towards Suho was gradually turning into a cruel one. If you enter the queen bee's nest with your own feet, you either leave as a worker bee or a prey. So, let's bid our farewell here. Huh? But why? For some reason, the little ant, Beru, was giggling on the table holding his stomach, a laugh that contained a much deeper mockery than before. On the other hand, unlike Beru, Suho was not smiling at all. Just like when he first came down there, he just got up from his chair and stood side by side with Arsha and started talking. Great, I'm thinking of going to Lee Minseong anyway. Shall we go together? How? Arsha, who was confident in her own poison, hurriedly moved away from Suho as if she had been burned. She couldn't feel the slightest bit of poison from Suho. Even at that moment, Suho was supposedly being poisoned in real time. But a harmful ingredient has been detected. The detoxification begins with the effect of blessing, great spellcaster Kandiaru's protection. Detoxification has been completed. Detoxification has been completed. Detoxification has been completed. Detoxification messages rained down in front of Suho's eyes. No way, withstanding my poison? Such a power. Seeing Suho like that, Arsha cried out in shock. Did you really get hold of another Querehsha relic? Arsha watched him fight the Lancers earlier through the bees. At the end, like the Lancers, Arsha thought that Suho could have obtained a relic. However, it was only a possibility, and the possibility of a mere human obtaining the relic of a great monarch was extremely slim. But this made it clear. It was impossible to withstand such poison unless he had inherited a relic left by the plague monarch. If you are already a descendant of the Fang monarch, why are you still aiming for the position of successor to Querehsha? Arsha's confidence made Beru and Suho look sad. It was hard to counter what she knew because they felt bad. The king of beasts, Fang monarch, grabs his stomach and stomps his feet while laughing. Let's go, Beru. Suho ignored Arsha and turned his back. He heard everything he wanted to hear, so there was no reason to be there anymore. Answer me before you go. Hearing Arsha's words from behind, Suho suddenly looked back and his eyes lit up. I'll tell you the answer the next time I meet your body. However, you won't be able to be safe then, unlike today. The meaning behind that would have been conveyed enough without having to say it. Suho climbs the stairs straight to the ground floor. Looking at his back, Arsha gritted her teeth with a look of resentment. How dare you show your back defenselessly in front of me? That's what it means to be confident. He stole all my worker bees and the poison doesn't work? If it goes like this? Wasn't that human being more like a queen bee than herself? This can't be. I must hurry up the sacrifice. At that point, whether it was Lee Minseong or Sung Suho, the anxiety that the successor might be taken away by someone came over. Arsha's body shattered. Citizens witnessed countless bees flying somewhere like smoke in Times Square. Are you leaving that stupid queen behind? It's not even the body, so why bother staying there? Lee Minseong is more of the problem now. In Suho's eyes, Arsha's beautiful appearance was just a cluster of bees. If he caught a few of those bees, he wouldn't get much experience. And above all, Arsha didn't seem to be a trouble. Well, since all the Lancers she worked so hard to collect are gone, she's going to hide quietly for a while. It is the fate of a queen bee to hide in a beehive for the rest of her life. Release the strong spirit. To save mana, Suho also let go of the blessing. Blessing is cancelled. The spiritual wind that had been swirling around Suho's body calmed down, and his hair, which had been bleached silver and fluttering, returned to black again. Until a little while ago, he had maintained his strength while dealing with the queen bee, but he needed to save mana until he found Lee Minseong. Pet, Gray's spiritual body leaves the body of the priest. Go back in. Suho sent Gray, who had fallen out of his body, back to the shadow dungeon. Right then. Hunter Sung Suho, are you alright? In front of Suho, who had just come up to the first floor, he ran into Beko guild members, who were just about to go down to the basement. Baek Miho, who was in the lead, quickly checked Suho's condition. Then she tilted her head. They said his hair was bleached, but it's now black. Did he stop casting his skill? Baek Miho, who wanted to see with his own eyes whether Suho had really used the beast transformation skill, felt regretful. She could ask him directly if he had the beast transformation skill, but right now, there were a lot of more important issues than that. First of all, Suho was the only one not wearing a gas mask in that area full of poison mist. He gave gas masks to his colleagues and disappeared. Could it be that he even gave up his gas mask to his colleagues? Baek Miho couldn't just ignore Suho's spirit of sacrifice. Please give this person a gas mask as soon as possible. Yes, Vice President. At Baek Miho's instruction, a guild member took out a gas mask from his bag and tried to put it on Suho's face. However, Suho politely declined and continued on his way. No thanks. I'm a bit busy right now, so I have to get out of here right away. It is the same for us. Other hunters are also evacuating outside. More than that, what the hell happened here? Baek Miho followed Suho as he was about to leave Times Square, asking questions. The other hunters said that you saved them, but how? Now is not the time for such small talk. Suho interrupted Baek Miho with a serious expression. We need to find and stop Lee Minseong immediately. What? Suddenly? What? Right then. Vice President, headquarters has contacted you. A Baeko guild member who was holding a cell phone behind him urgently called Baek Miho. Right now, Lee Minseong is carrying out a massacre in the streets. Both Suho and Baek Miho's heads turned at the same time. No matter who came first, the two started running towards the exit of the labyrinth. Well, wait for us, Vice President. The startled Baeko guild members followed them one step later. All of a sudden, they felt strange. Wait, didn't you say that person was C-class? Why is he so fast? Surprisingly, Suho was running at almost the same speed as Baek Miho, an A-class hunter. Baek Miho, who was running right next to him, was even more shocked. Huh? His profile clearly says he's a summoning hunter? He had not yet transformed into a beast, his main skill. In addition, because this place was a winding labyrinth, it was impossible to sprint in a straight line. However, apart from this and that, Suho's current speed was by no means that of a C-class summoning hunter. Coincidentally, Suho was thinking the same thing while looking at Baek Miho. She's fast, an A-class hunter after all. He suddenly remembered Lee Minseong, whom he was going to catch now, was also an A-class hunter. Just as much as Queen Bee Arsha had regrets, Lee Minseong would have been different from the Lancers made only of C-class or lower-level hunters. If he made up his mind and ran away, it might been a little annoying. Besides, doesn't Lee Minseong even have wings? Oh, I had a good idea. Baek Miho. Yes? How long do you think it will take to go all the way from here to Lee Minseong? Running? Obviously. Did you think of going by car? There will be traffic at this hour. After the cataclysm, traffic jams in Seoul became severe. This was because the gates were opened at several major subway stations and the train lines were cut off. In an emergency like now, it was much faster to run. Baek Miho, who understood Suho's intentions, calculated the distance for a while and answered confidently. I think 20 minutes will be enough if I run at full power. How about you? Suho could feel the competitive spirit in the provocative eyes looking at him. Even though they were running side by side now, it was a grounded confidence that if they changed into beasts and sprinted, they would be vastly faster than they were now. Well, after all, you're an A-class. Suho raised his thumb in genuine admiration, and with a more pure expression, he suggested to Baek Miho, I'm afraid I'll be much slower than that, so why don't you carry me on your back? What? Baek Miho doubted her ears. Chapter 69. In order for Suho to sprint, he had to use several buff skills that reduce mana in real time. The used mana can be restored with a potion, but no one knows what it would be like if they arrived in front of Lee Minseong. I have to conserve my physical strength as much as possible, so that I can go straight into battle as soon as I arrive. He decided to use Baek Miho, who was nearby. Carry? Yes. You, Hunter Sung Suho? Yes. You're on the way there anyway, so please give me a ride. I mean, wait, how could you ask that very casually? Baek Miho was greatly taken aback when Suho tried to climb on her back right away. Are you serious? Is this the time for a leisurely joke then? Wow. Baek Miho was stunned by Suho's brazenness. Looking at those serious eyes, it seemed that he was not joking at all. Suho wasn't even joking in the first place. But what crazy person would dare to say nonsense to the vice president of the Baeko Guild? He just asked her to carry him. Like she was some kind of a taxi or what? I have to stock up on my physical strength as much as possible until I meet Lee Minseong. Then what about my physical strength? For an A-class hunter, Carrying me on your back won't reduce your physical strength or mana, right? Yeah, but glad to hear that. I'm a C-class hunter, and my physical strength was exhausted. I can't rest first before fighting as soon as I get there, right? Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. Obviously it doesn't, but Baek Miho was strangely kind of being persuaded by Suho's words. They were in such an urgent situation that she couldn't afford to refute every word he said. Even if they weren't, she was feeling a strange pressure and intimidation from Suho that could not be expressed in words. Yes, that feeling was like, why does it feel like facing my father? The king of beasts, Fang Monarch, giggles and looks at Baek Miho. Baek Miho did not realize that now, from afar, the greatest king of beasts was looking down at her. The spirit of the mighty predator was secretly flowing through Suho, the pontifex, and putting pressure on Baek Miho. She finally closed her eyes and shouted, "All right, it's a waste of time to argue like this right now." Baek Miho's whole body overflowed with the beast's energy. Suho and Beru's eyes lit up at the same time. No wonder Raken had been watching her from the realm of death before. If it wasn't for me, this person could have been the pontifex of Raken. Foxy, a mysterious ability that strengthens the human body like a beast. He heard rumors that if Baek Yunho, the guild leader of the Beko, White Tiger Guild, increased this power to the extreme, he would turn into a white tiger. But Baek Miho, fox? Baek Miho engulfed the energy of an animal, transformed into an agile fox-like figure, and looked down proudly at Suho, fluffy white hair. The pure white aura flowing over her created fox-like ears and a tail. Great, I'll get on then. Baek Miho's eyes shook for a moment at Suho unhesitantly getting on her back. He wasn't overwhelmed by my energy? A C-class hunter like him? There was a hierarchy that was determined instinctively among hunters who used the same beast transformation skill. It was possible to suppress or ignore that instinct with human will and guts, but it was normal to react like the members of the Beko Guild behind them. Vice President! The Beko Guild members were feeling the energy radiating from Baek Miho and were extremely shocked as their complexions turned white, like beasts facing a stronger predator. But Suho was different. Come on, let's go, hurry! Like a cicada attached to an old tree, Suho was sitting peacefully on Baek Miho's back. Even on top of that cicada, there is one more smaller and louder cicada. Can't we get going now, Fox? Hold on tight. Baek Miho bit her teeth hard and her eyes flashed. Because I will run with all my might. At that moment, Baek Miho's new appearance, carrying Suho, became a ray of light and shot forward. It was not as easy as a hunter thought to sprint in the city center. The problem is the people who roam on the streets. The moment an awakener brushes against one of them while running, ordinary people would literally bounce off like bowling pins. For a traffic accident, it was more dangerous than being hit by a dump truck. After the cataclysm, such incidents were frequent. It was a case where rookies who had just awakened run around intoxicated with their own power and unintentionally caused major accidents. However, with the launch of the Hunter Association, the Hunter Law was created, and since then, there have been few cases where hunters sprinted recklessly on the road. No matter how confident one was in their physical abilities, they would tend to use normal transportation whenever possible. But in an emergency like now, things were different. Move on the top of the buildings as much as possible. Baek Miho, with Suho on her back, was moving by leaping over the buildings. Her speed was so fast that ordinary people could not dare to follow her with their eyes. Huh? Right there. Oh, what? I don't see anything though? Did I see it wrong? She was so fast that even if someone recognized her from a distance and tried to take a picture, she would already disappear by that time. Suho was genuinely admiring Baek Miho's movements. Surely fast. Is this the A-class level? Through that, Suho was estimating the level of Lee Minseong to fight with later on. She's a pretty nimble fox. I will ride often in the future. Beru, it's rude to say that. Baek Miho pursed her lips in anger at the conversation behind her back. Summoning hunters and summons were shameless. But really, at this speed, we should arrive in 20 minutes. That's right. As the conversation continued, Baek Miho finally opened her mouth. Did you really think of me as a taxi? It was then. Suho looked at Beru and said, the sooner the better. Beru's eyes squinted and he smiled evilly. Got it. Beru uses skill Harsh Command. The Harsh Commander Brokey and the buff skill Beru acquired was activated. Since this buff was a skill that only applied to beasts, it could also be used on the beast that Suho was riding at this moment. Skill. Harsh Command increases Miho Baek's stats by 50%. As a side effect of skill Harsh Command, Baek Miho is cursed with madness. Baek Miho's eyes suddenly changed. A furious rage bubbled up from the depths of her heart and rose to the top of her head. She was unaware if that rage was because of Suho and Beru's chatter, or because of the unknown buff skill. The moment she surrendered to that emotion, her body felt like it was about to fly. Great! Suho succeeded in arriving at the scene in 10 minutes. Skill, harsh command is cancelled. Are you okay? Yeah. Baek Miho came back to her senses and looked a little tired. Perhaps because she had worked harder than usual. She was at a level where she recovered quickly, with just a little breath. More important than that was the situation they arrived at. What the hell is this? Baek Miho looked at the scene unfolding in front of her with a serious expression. Bizarre-looking mutants were attacking citizens. The hunters were busy trying to stop them. But the problem was that the citizens who were corrupted by the mutants were gradually rotting and turning into new mutants. The situation seemed to get out of hand if it was not resolved quickly. Oh my god, a zombie apocalypse in the middle of the city? No, they are not zombies. Baek Miho's words were immediately corrected by Suho. It's a ghoul. In Suho's eyes, the name tags were clearly visible above the heads of the mutants. Contaminated ghoul. Contaminated ghoul. Contaminated ghoul. Zombies and ghouls are completely different. If zombies were walking corpses, ghouls were rather like vampires. To be precise, a food demon. In other words, if vampires consume human blood, ghouls consume human flesh. Above all, what made them different from zombies was that ghouls were not dead bodies, so they were not stupid. But for some reason, the ghouls there were more interested in killing people than consuming them, and the victims who were attacked by them rose up as new ghouls, while their flesh gradually rotted away, like zombies. These guys' purpose was not a simple massacre. The royal jelly that Queen Bee Arsha used to increase her soldiers. A powerful poisonous aura was felt from the contaminated ghouls. As Arsha said, Lee Minseong is now gathering more ghouls to form his own legion. Suho, who quickly grasped the situation, looked at Beru. Beru? Yes. Can you find Lee Minseong? I have already found him. Beru's antenna, which had been bobbing non-stop since earlier, stopped abruptly. Following the directions indicated, Suho and Baek Miho simultaneously raised their heads and looked up, and at the same time, their expressions hardened. It was dark even under the lamp. There was a 40-story residential commercial complex right in front of them. A huge beehive had been built on the upper floors of the high-rise building, which could only be seen if you looked up. You mean there's Lee Minseong up there? Baek Miho, who heard the conversation between the two, widened her eyes and clenched her fists. Tremendous momentum surged from her whole body. Hunter sung Suho, let's move separately from now on. I'll raid that hive and you stay here. It looks like the electricity has been cut off. Can you go up the stairs to the top? I will take care of that. You stay? Wait. Suho grabbed Baek Miho by the back as she tried to run straight into the building. What? She looked back at Suho with a flushed face in embarrassment, and Suho smiled and said, You gave me a ride on the way here, so I'll give you a ride this time. Baek Miho looked back in shock when someone suddenly lifted her body up. Shadow Lancer Level 1, General Class. Just in time, the Black Lancers rose from the shadows of Suho. A soldier the size of a man with black steam took Suho and Miho back in their arms. We don't have time, so let's fly. Chapter 70. 10 minutes before Suho's arrival, numerous drones were flying over the city where the disaster occurred. Suddenly appearing mutants are attacking the citizens. Real-time news with shocking content hit the country. Currently, the police hunters of the Hunter Association are quickly suppressing the situation. No matter how hopeful the news was, the situation shown on the screen was not. Citizens were screaming and running away everywhere. Mutants were following them at breakneck speed and were attacking them. The wounds of the citizens bitten by them rot away at a rapid rate, where they even turn into new mutants right at the scene. Despite the struggles of the Association hunters, the number of mutants is increasing rapidly. It was a so-called zombie apocalypse in the middle of the city. Currently, the Hunter Association is in the process of recruiting more troops to the field, but it will take some time for them to arrive. In the end, the problem was time. Overall, the place where the disaster occurred is in the middle of Seoul, where tens of thousands of citizens live. If that large population turned into mutants, Korea would have no choice but to face an apocalypse. Even at that moment, several guilds were sending additional support, but their number was lacking. The hunters were always busy, and it would take quite a while to arrive, unless the hunters were nearby. Right then, something odd happened. Ah, this is the Reaper Guild. A drone camera suddenly appeared and captured the members of the Reaper Guild shooting magical arrows at the mutants. Guild leader Lim Taegyu of the Reaper Guild has arrived at the scene with his guild members. All the drones started taking close-ups of Lim Taegyu. He took the lead and began to actively help the struggling association hunters by directing the members of the Reaper Guild. Meanwhile, the Hunter Association is arguing that the root cause is villain Lee Minseong, who was the vice president of the Reaper Guild. At the same time, News began to appear on the internet, emphasizing that the cause of this incident was not the Reaper Guild, but solely Lee Minseong. Numerous comments began to run under the articles. Does that make sense? They're probably still all connected somehow. Did they cut ties with him? It seems that the vice president lost it in a fit of anger. What if our country goes down? I'm glad I live in the countryside. Public opinion had long since antagonized the guild. They were already seen in bad light due to rumors, so they were firmly stigmatized by the incident. However, even the malicious commenters who cursed the guild had no choice but to admit one fact. Lim Taegyu, an S-class hunter, the tremendous sight of the countless magic arrows he shoots at the mutants every moment was captured on the screen. Awesome. Lim Taegyu is amazing. S-class are really different. If he had that skill, he should have quietly gone solo. Why bother creating a guild and receive swearing from the public? His hunter skill and manager skills are different. Lim Taegyu's weapon is the Reaper's bow, but the price is... Right then, the secretary standing behind Lim Taegyu made a strange move. Huh? Hey, wait! At his back! His back! Look behind you. Lim Taegyu was concentrating on the battle. The viewers who were watching him through drones were the first to sense something. However, Lim Taegyu was not able to see the comments and was totally unguarded. Secretary O was standing behind him. That's crazy, what was that? Betrayal? Was he Lee Minseong's pawn? Why are you so helpless? Were S-class hunters originally that weak? No way. Did he get poisoned? Viewers watching the news were in shock. Even S-class hunters were not invincible, even if their attack power and defense power were incredibly high. As long as they were human, if they were injured, they would be sick. And if they were fatally wounded, they would inevitably die. However, for those who did not know the details, it was hard to believe that the S-class hunter was stabbed by a dagger and fell to his knees. Surprised by the person he trusted, Lim Taegyu immediately pulled out the dagger stuck in his back. The psychological shock was greater than the physical pain. Secretary O, why did you... Secretary O only put on a puzzled expression. Boss, I am sorry. I have a great mission from the queen. What queen are you? Suddenly, Taegyu Lim's legs staggered. It was the poison. Not an ordinary poison, but an extreme poison. Secretary O bowed politely to Lim Taegyu. Don't strain yourself and accept it. The poison I used is the queen's royal jelly. Royal jelly? Memories flashed through Lim Taegyu's mind. Boss, it's your birthday, right? Here's a gift. Hey, a gift? What is it? It's a high-quality liquor that I had a hard time getting through an acquaintance. Would you like to try it? Nice. The name is Royal Jelly, right? It's good for your body. Secretary O gave Lim Taegyu a Western liquor called Royal Jelly as a gift whenever he had a chance. Why does the name of the drink with a strangely sweet scent come to his mind at a moment like that? Cheers. Lim Taegyu felt a tremendous headache. At the same time, a powerful message resonates in his head. Be loyal to the queen. Be loyal to the queen. Lim Taegyu threw away even the bow of the Reaper Guild and rolled on the floor holding his head with both hands. It was impossible for Royal Jelly, which had failed to control even Lee Minseong, to get through a higher-level hunter. Get out of my head! Lim Taegyu screamed out loud as a huge aura swirled through his body. Secretary O hurriedly left from the sudden attack. However, Lim Taegyu had no time to care about him, and fought against the voice who tried to devour his mind. President, a healer from the Reaper Guild, who noticed what was happening, approached Lim Taegyu and hurriedly healed him. However, it was not an ordinary poison that was consuming Lim Taegyu's body. It was impossible to decipher with normal skills. President, the heal doesn't work. I think you have to drive out the poison with your own mana power. Mana? His mana was already doing that. Lim Taegyu focused all his mana and fought against the energy of Royal Jelly. It seemed that if that process was broken even for a moment, his mind would be corrupted. Don't mind me. Go see the other guild members and catch that secretary who ran away. It seems like he was working under Lee Minseong. Yes, sir. After giving orders to his subordinates, Lim Taegyu sat down with his back leaning as he was out of breath. Fighting or anything, he couldn't use any skills because he was suppressing the poison with his mana. It seemed that his mind would be subdued as soon as he used any skill. I have to counter it with mana power. But even that wasn't easy. The ambush he just suffered was just a trigger. The high-quality liquor called Royal Jelly he had received from Secretary O had been accumulated in his body. Suho and Baek Miho arrived at the scene just in time. Baek Miho, Lim Taegyu, who was fighting the poison, immediately recognized her. Baek Miho, the vice president of the Baeko Guild, came. However, who was she carrying on her back? What kind of person would the great Baek Miho carry? If he was such a talented person, Lim Taegyu would have recognized him. The face of the young man Baek Miho brought down from her back was a face he had never seen before. Just then, the young man's head lifted as he looked around at the situation. From a while ago, he found a suspicious beehive that was on the upper floors of the surrounding buildings. Let's fly right away. Those words suddenly came out of his mouth. As much as he couldn't use any skill, Lim Taegyu, who was paying attention to the surrounding situation, felt puzzled when he heard Suho. Fly? A black shadow rose from under the young man's feet, wrapping around both him and Baek Miho. Whoa! The situation was so sudden that even Baek Miho was startled. Lim Taegyu, who was watching from afar, opened his eyes wide as if they were going to pop out. Two pairs of wings with black steam were on their backs. What are those? As soon as Suho saw the contaminated ghouls, he quickly grasped the situation. The purpose of Lee Minseong was to create his own legion by killing citizens. As a result, he chose a structure where there were countless lives as Arsha intended, and more number of sacrifices. All the casualties were a sacrifice to the Queen of Insects, Plague Monarch, Querehsha. We don't have time. If things go on just like that, it would only be a matter of time before the ritual would eventually be completed, as Arsha planned. Speed was the answer. I'll leave these ones to the hunters and I'll catch the captain. He had no intention of going up the stairs of that high building step by step. I must fly. Suho had shadow soldiers with wings. Two of you, come out. At Suho's command, shadows swayed beneath his feet. Suddenly, Suho had a good idea. These guys are shadows anyway. Shadows can exist anywhere, even if it's not under Suho's feet. Even Beru would hide in the small shadows that existed in every corner of Suho's body and then pop out. It was possible for only his face to stick out, while his body remained in the shadows. That means it would be possible for the others to do it too. Suho ordered the shadow lancers hiding in his shadow. Ride on our backs and just take out your wings. They soon followed Suho's order. A shadow lancer pulled the pairs of wings from his back. Another black shadow covered Suho's shoulders and back, creating a strange shape. Seeing that, Beru smiled at Suho with a strange expression. This is a really interesting strategy. You're only halfway through summoning soldiers. It's definitely a new era. Such idea is novel. Boomer. Beru reacted defensively. The king of beasts, Fang Monarch, raises a question, asking if he imitated the blessing skill. What are you talking about? You can see for yourself. Suho smiled and flew away. Baek Miho, who floated beside him, couldn't help but be astonished. Oh my god, I heard he was a C-class summoning hunter. What kind of skill was that? Summoned wings? Was there a skill that allowed one to attach wings to the body of a comrade like that? Most of all, if you had skills like this, why did you ask me to carry you on my back? Baek Miho stared at Suho, implying that it was unfair. Suho responded shamelessly. When I get tired, my mana decreases. Anyway, let's go up to the beehive like this. Right then. Wait a minute, take me too. Suddenly they heard someone screaming urgently. Baek Miho confirmed his identity and exclaimed in surprise. President Lim Taegyu? Who is that person? Reaper Guild, one of the representative guilds in Korea. The name of Lim Taegyu, the guild leader there, was familiar to Suho. He didn't look very good, but an S-class hunter would definitely be of help. Go with that one guy over there. At those words, a black shadow flew and clung to Lim Taegyu's body. Follow me with your own will. Suho left only those words and started preparing to fly again. What the hell is this? Suddenly, Lim Taegyu felt a strange sensation as something clung to his body. Regardless, he meekly accepted the shadow. I might be able to reject it if I push it away with mana. He felt a sense of rejection for a moment, but he endured it. In the first place, he couldn't use his mana separately because he was countering the effect of royal jelly. Soon after, the shadow wings that sprouted from Lim Taegyu's back began to flap. Then at a tremendous speed, he flew up after Suho and Baek Miho. The target was the beehive. As they got closer and closer to the beehive, a huge rain of arrows suddenly came from inside the beehive. Each of them was an arrow surrounded by an aura. Baek Miho and Lim Taegyu were surprised. No one knew how it would be if they were on the ground, but there was no way to dodge that many arrows while floating in the air. It was a situation where they had to shield themselves or become shields helplessly. Baek Miho hurriedly shouted, President Lim Taegyu, Hunter Sung Suho, hide behind me. If there was no way to avoid it, it was best for one person to act as a shield. Among the three of them, it was the most effective for a fighter to become a shield. You're a pretty noble fox. Beru went on Miho Bayek's hair and stroked it. But don't worry. Beru smiled faintly and looked at the back of Suho. Our young master will solve it. Suho's eyes flashed. Don't back down, keep flying. The shadow lancers attached to their backs flapped their wings even harder. That moment, used skill Blade Storm. The wind created a raging like typhoon. Before they knew it, the twin swords held in both hands of Suho began to brutally slaughter the entire space into the barrage of arrows. Suho, Baek Miho, and Lim Taegyu flew straight through the center of the typhoon. In particular, the shock felt by Baek Miho, who knew Suho as a summoning hunter, was indescribable. Oh my god, what is this? Wasn't he just a C-class summoning hunter? Following the summoned wings, he also has such a tremendous attack skill? Did he hide his power? Why? It made no sense at first. What kind of hunter in the world would lower his class and value by suppressing his skills?